As if dating wasn't difficult enough, there are two kinds of trends that are going out online about having a best friend from the other gender that make it very difficult to be friends. It bothers the hell out of me because it's spewed by both prominent men and women. 1. If you're a girl and having a boy best friend is just a ticking time bomb for feelings, it's just waiting to happen because they're only there to opportunistically wait for their moment to get out of the friend zone, and therefore they might even do things like sabotage your relationship. And the moment you're single, they'll be around knocking, feeling that they are entitled to be with you by being your friend.
Men don't have platonic friends, okay? We just have women we haven't fucked yet. You know what a platonic friend is to a woman? It's like a dick in a glass case.
So when you have sentiments like that men and women cannot just be friends platonically without there needing to be feelings at any point, you get the idea that even your partner in a hetero relationship all of a sudden is suspicious when they hang out with other women or when they like another girl's Instagram picture. Something that would be very innocuous if you just trusted them.
I didn't cheat on you.
I know that you did.
Series
Like
of
you
events
flirting
or-
with other girls, you eyeing other girls.
Who would I ever flirt with?
Oh my gosh, all the girls at your gym?
You're not at the gym, so how can you say I'm
On
flirting with them?
Instagram.
But exactly this thing, that very small innocuous things like liking another girl's Instagram picture is all of a sudden suspicious worthy, creates a rift between men and women, that they are only supposed to be around each other in the context of a relationship. It creates a standard level of distrust towards your partner, or healthy jealousy as most people justify, because they think of all the ways that people cheat. There might be very legitimate reason for you to be fearful that your partner might leave you, but if you then make sure that they do not associate with any other person of the other gender, then it makes it way more difficult for them to have healthy connections. To me, these two sentiments, one, that you cannot just be friends of the other gender, and two, that this somehow creates a healthy level of distrust that you should have towards your partner to prevent them from going somewhere else, are massively contributing to the problems that we have nowadays in the society. Think about sexism, male loneliness, cheating, and even abusive relationship dynamics. Over the course of the next 3 videos, I will try to explain to you 1. Why it is absolutely necessary to have a close friend that you can fully trust of the gender that you are interested in. 2. Why how we think about relationship creates these toxic dynamics that we've just talked about. And 3. How you can navigate these relationships in a way that make the most out of them. Today we will tackle question 1. Nowadays we face many important problems in society between the sexes. Think about misogyny and misandry, harassment of women and loneliness of men, a crisis in the idea of femininity, as we've talked about last video, and a resurgence of the toxic elements of masculinity. Does your man like another girl's Insta picture, or do you have to pay for the first date as a man? The need for women to put up a creeper shield in order to prevent accusations that they were asking for it, and men not even knowing the boundaries of what is proper. I am very consciously giving you this list side by side because these problems are connected to one another. You might decide for yourself whether you think that one side has it decidedly worse than the other, or that one side has a real problem and the other one is just making problems out of nothing. The point is that they are connected to one another. Depending on your political leaning often, you will think that one side has it worse than the other, because they are highlighted completely differently by different talking heads. People speaking only to the men's side or to the woman's side of the issue. In those echo chambers, you get people that usually speak about the other side's problems instead of to them about their problems. And so you get a massive disconnect. One of the main things I keep coming back to on this channel is that gender issues are directly connected to one another. What it means to be a man is directly connected to what it means to be a woman. They are defined in opposition to one another. So if you've got an issue on one side of the gender spectrum, you have its mirror on the other side as well, an equal or equivalent or at least another problem that reflects it in the other side. It is therefore important that when you want to tackle gender issues that you not just try to do feminism by solving women's issue and just getting men to back off. You need to take into account which problems it creates in men and how you can solve it in a way that you can move forward together. So take the connected issue of harassment of women and loneliness of men. If you go about trying to solve one side of harassment of women and you do a good thing, like prohibiting all kinds of interactions between men and women that are not strictly professional. So you make difficult to have flirting, touching of any kind, lewd comments, good things I would say. But that makes it mirror also stronger. It's not just that the formal rules in the workplace are going to limit these kinds of things from happening. Ask any employee of the old Blizzard Entertainment that workplace culture is much more than just the rules. And even if it does work formally, it makes the amount of connection between men and women lesser overall, making men more lonely and more vulnerable to right-wing activists like Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate to offer them solutions. To say nothing about the merit of the argument, women already get blamed for making workplace interactions difficult because they are tempting men to do stuff like putting on makeup, which is meant to be sexually provocative, at least according to Jordan Peterson. Not saying whether it's true or not, but it does build up resentment among the male side that it's somehow the other side's problem. Both sides of the issue here revolve around navigating gender dynamics of the proper boundaries between men and women. A failure to solve this problem hurts both genders. The issue of male loneliness also ties into another issue of how men and women get socialized differently into society to connect differently. Stereotypically, men amongst the bros are simple, straightforward creatures just like we love them. Their camaraderie does not get defined or limited by pesky little details like remembering each other's birthdays, or sharing negative emotions. Recent studies have actually pointed this out, that there is a significant difference between men and women when it comes to sharing their emotions. That men and women are equally as likely to speak about their positive emotions, but men are far less likely to speak about their negative emotions compared to women. So either there is a pressure that you shouldn't talk about your negative emotions, or men never get taught the need to do so in the first place. I personally feel this as well. Even though I've got a group of guy friends and a lot of girlfriends to talk about issues as well, I am much more likely to go to my girlfriends at least first. Because I know that my guy group is a very open group with very smart people that can talk about these issues, and we do often talk about negative issues as well. I don't think that we have the tools to make me feel better about it, especially compared to my girlfriends. So there's nothing on them. There's just something about the way that we are raised as men. Initially, you might think that this is because men amongst men are just afraid that they will say negative things about one another, like, oh, that's pretty gay when you talk about emotions. It's not that at all. I just don't see the point. Still, male-to-male friendships are very significant, meaningful connections, not surface level at all in many ways. But what they are lacking due to toxic elements of masculinity, like the idea that men should not cry, for example, and therefore emotions being somewhat taboo, we are not taught these tools to deal with emotions on our own or with each other, and therefore the connections between men amongst each other often lack a layer of emotional intimacy. But because everyone is human, everyone has emotions that they need to deal with, and not being able to be vulnerable in your standard social safety net amongst the guys, men get primed to search for this emotional intimacy elsewhere. And so, in order to satisfy this human need of emotional intimacy, for men there's only one avenue that it can be found, in romantic relationships with women. Especially because in this world that we have created for ourselves, where you cannot just be friends with someone of the other gender, all of a sudden only relationships are the way to go for that. I've been told that women on the other side have something called the group chat. The idea that there are girlfriends with each other that are talking about everything and everyone. So as a guy, if you want to get closer to the girl, you better make sure that most of your messages are being shown to the group chat and you are tried to see whether you are worthy or not. Overall, this provides women with a deeper, more emotionally intimate social safety net where they can go to talk about everything and everyone. Of course, I don't want to diminish the idea of female loneliness, which still exists, and of course Dr. K has talked about it, so I'll refer to that video on that issue. Unfortunately, with the attitudes that we've highlighted about friendships between men and women, it's somehow taboo and discouraged. It's not even like these connections are unnatural and that you need to force them. It's clearly more the case that we as a society discourage people from having these kinds of friendships. And evidence for this reminds me of my mother. My mother works at a daycare. She's done so for 20 years, but it's not just for small children. It is from all the way from 0 to 16 usually. She's done this work for about 20 years, and so she has seen kids of all ages and even grow up during the entirety of her tenure. She tells me many times that the same children that are playing boys and girls with each other indiscriminately when they are younger, all of a sudden, when they get to high school for example, or they grow a little bit older, the same girls that they've been playing with all the time are all of a sudden yucky. What I do not think is the case that all boys around the same age became older and wiser, they went to Egypt, they uncovered the ancient scrolls and found in them the ancient truths that women are in fact yucky. What is more likely to be the case is that this is a very slow process of socialization. Think about being a boy, for example. Over the years, you see that your parents might not have any friends of the other sex. Or when you are playing with your girlfriends, people start asking questions like, is there something there? Do you like them? Because teasing someone means that you like them somehow, right? That you get side eyes when people are playing with the wrong kinds of friends. Or that you're supposed to be with other guys. Or you're supposed to be in these kinds of sports and not in these kinds of sports that girls are there. Or boys and girls get separated on an early age as well when it comes to playing sports or even at school sometimes. And so we enforce this separation in society in small and larger ways. Even when you think about representation of friends in the media. The idea that men and women are not friends is not just something you see in your personal life. It's also that your favorite influencers are complaining about boy best friends being opportunistic. Or you get that in films and media, you see that there's always needs to be a romantic couple, especially the good-looking people. You could almost predict it. All of these factors then weigh into the idea that it's not that you cannot be friends with the other sex, it's more that there's a pressure not to, or you don't see the point in it. Over time, the same friendships that you've had with girls, you do not maintain them when you grow older because it's so much pressure of other people thinking that you're somehow together, or that there should be something, or that there might be something suspicious going on. And so for men, emotional intimacy is not present in much of their lives. And so when they go about and getting a relationship, it adds the added weight of them needing emotional intimacy as a burden on the relationship with women. And that makes it more difficult to actually have an equal relationship because the woman starts to pick up the role, like in the old trope, that you become a mother to them, that you need to nag them to do basic stuff, or that you need to pull out of the emotions out of them. Or that you start therapizing them, and so every time there is something in their lives going on, the only person they ever go to is their partner. And so for many men, their only exposure to these very useful skills that come from emotional intimacy, like reflection and processing emotions, comes only from their relationships to women, which get it from their connections to other women. So one side of the equation, women have more emotionally comprehensive social safety nets and therefore are less lonely and have more emotional skills. On the other side, men have less emotionally comprehensive social safety nets, therefore feel more lonely, have less emotional skills and need to get those in the relationship with women and puts more pressure on those relationships. What right-wing pundits speak about almost exclusively is the side of lonely men. The solution to the problems that we face nowadays is to empower these lonely men in order to get into relationships with women. And I've been in that hole, so I get it. But these old norms that they're sold to you like the cure to the modern problems are the ones that have created these issues in the first place. In that old world of male domination, women's empowerment and emancipation over the years, such as access to birth control, being able to get out of the home, get a job for yourself and stop having to make bread or do laundry all of the time, Being able to choose to have a family if you want to and not have children sometimes. So not that your body is a forced incubator for a baby as your only purpose in life. Having your consent matter, having domestic violence matter, being able to have no-fault divorce laws so that it doesn't need to be that your man did something very bad for you to be able to get divorced. Or even being able to be promiscuous, like having a body count higher than 0 being acceptable, otherwise you would be seen as worthless. All of these things that are victories for women's emancipation over the years are then obstacles that are causing the problem that we have right now, according to that old formula at least. In that old worldview, simply said, the problems that we have nowadays with dating is women not living up to their expectation of being a meek, complacent, passive housewife in which their only purposes in life is submitting to their husband, homemaking, and creating babies. What I hope you understand by my cynicism is that what you cannot do on a societal level is empower this sentiment of male entitlement over women's bodies and just remove all the rights and victories that women have gotten over the years in order to put them back into the home. That would be kind of like forcing relationships by having a Barbie and a Kendall be smushing them together and hoping that it'll work. That would ruin relationships even more than they already are. Well, at least on the plus side, if you go back to these old roles, at least men will be able to pay for the first date, right? Jokes aside, it's a very inelegant way to go about navigating these difficult gender dynamics by just going back to the old formula that we think worked and completely disregard women's suffering over the years, especially the women that already talked about it at the time. We can't go back. We should think of a solution that actually works for both men and women, because it cannot be the case that gender dynamics are always this zero-sum game. We have it once more, that in order for men to win and fix their loneliness, women have to lose the rights that they have gotten over the years. Or for women to win and get to feel safe, that all of the connections to men have to deteriorate as well. So we have to throw out the old recipe and chart a new path together, adapting to the current world. One thing that we need to do when we start is stop expecting the old roles of each other. That means for women to not expect men to be these old chivalrous, masculine, toxic alpha males that they were back in the day as you romanticize them to be, especially if you don't want them to also return back to the monsters that they actually were behind the scenes many times, as much as they were allowed to get away with. So you should use these newfound privileges and change the idea of femininity away from this passive, meek, domestic housewife that you don't want to be, and become more active in communicating what you do want, what you expect from your partner, and not expecting them for them to go back to the old roles of the past. As you might imagine, navigating these gender dynamics is very difficult, and it's uncharted territory for the most part, so there is no one way, no formula that the self-help guru can sell you in order to win at these relationships. Another essential part of these new kinds of navigating of relationships is to have male to female friendships and even encourage it. It's very difficult for everyone to make a social safety net that they are proud of, but we should still encourage doing so. And inevitably, there are going to be some fails there where one catches feeling and the other one does not, and therefore it does collapse. But that's because of these interactions being so loaded right now. You're always trying to fight against the tide, which is going to be quite difficult. But it's worth it, because the indescribable beauty that springs forth when you have these types of connections, especially because there is no one single recipe for it, is beautiful. On the issue of having a girl best friend, I speak with great personal experience, both in how it can fail miserably and how it can work very well. My girl bestie and I, Silke, have been friends for 6 years now. We've had our ups and downs and many struggles, but we've always come out on top, and we realize that we are better off as friends. And that's not because we did anything wrong. It's not because she's not attractive enough to be a partner. Quite the contrary, in fact. The issue is that once you get closer together, you realize what you are to one another. You realize that you might be compatible or not might be compatible, and that not every feeling that you cannot describe of being uncharted territory needs to lead to a relationship. Not every good-looking person that you might be interested in is good to be in a relationship in, and you learn more about yourself in the process of being appreciated by someone without it necessarily being a relationship. And friendships are like this. You grow closer together and then you navigate these boundaries. Because there is less taboo between men to men and women to women, that's fine. But especially when it comes to men and women together, it's a bit taboo. So you've got to map it out, communicate and navigate these boundaries together, and so you can grow closer without there being a conflict in any of you two's lives. These kinds of friendships allow men to open up on another level that they might not be able to do with their male friends. And as well with women, they explore parts of themselves on how they deserve to be treated and by someone that is not necessarily into them in a way that they want to get into their pants. You can speak about topics and have insights that you would never have had access to. Knowing what girls want, for example. I like very much this trend that people talk about their boy best friends, as girls for example, that can give them a brutally honest evaluation of why they are single. In general, humans are social animals and therefore we explore parts of ourselves in connection to other people. Having many different types of connections allows you to explore many different parts of yourself, especially when those are more emotionally intimate. And so having someone of the other gender or the gender that you are interested in as a close friend can show you how you deserve to be treated, bare minimum. And so having a cheerleader in your corner when things go well and someone to cry to when things do not go well is very good for the social safety net of both sides. Because I am so close with a girl, I know exactly what I can expect from another partner, or at least what I deserve to be treated as. I am not settling for anything less than bare minimum treatment. And that's not necessarily being a king, expecting a woman to do everything for me, because I've got realistic expectations having a girl best friend, which is in a relationship, so I can think about what do I want in a relationship, why would I compromise being single, or actually get into a relationship with someone that appreciates me in the way that I want to be appreciated. In many ways, I trust Silke with my life, and therefore I know that I can level with her as an equal to provide counter pressure instead of feeding into my delusions. She can keep me realistic, but also lift me up so I do not expect less. The echo chamber in this case works both ways. Having men advise other men about what women want allegedly is the blind leading the blind. Just as much as women advising women about what men want. If we only ever socialize with the other sex in the context of a relationship, then we accept worse treatment from one another. Both we treat other people worse because they are not our equal, they are an other, and we listen to all the worst impulses in our echo chamber telling us what they allegedly want. And on the other side, we're willing to accept worse treatment because we ain't got no other reference to measure this connection to. So, having at least one robust friendship of someone of the other gender is essential to your development. Sorry, this is all in a hetero context, so we love you very much, queer people, but I'm talking about hetero relationships here. If you have such a friendship, it makes you be a better lover because you know what the other wants and you can have new tricks that you can exchange. But also it helps you be a more understanding partner when you finally do get in a relationship for the right reasons instead of out of desperation. Having a girl best friend that there's no expectation of anything more and no tension there is honestly one of the best things I've ever gotten in life that I'm very thankful for. Because I have learned so much about the experience of what it is like to be a woman that I would have never even guessed because I didn't talk to women beforehand in that way. Even getting feelings is not necessarily the end of a connection because you don't know whether that is a feeling of wanting to be in a relationship or just growing closer to someone and not knowing what this feeling is. You can navigate that together. I've learned so much by growing close to Silke, talking about topics about being a woman, for example, that I would have never guessed. I was 23 years of age, for example, when I found out that walking alone home in the dark is anything but normal, like it is for me. Apparently, it's a profoundly tense experience for women that is to be avoided at all costs, if possible. If it is so tense, me as the well-meaning guy know that I cannot and will not harm women in any way, and I do not want to creep them out, but unintentionally I might still do so. And Silke has helped me realize some ways that I can help women feel less tense walking home at night that makes their experience much better, even though I don't want to have anything to do with them in any romantic context or whatever. Think about when I'm walking home alone at the curb at the dark and there's a girl walking in front of me. I might still decide to cross the curb to the other side of the street in order to make her feel more comfortable. Or that if it concerns a female friend of mine and we're going home from a party, if I ever have those, I can personally escort her home to make sure that she gets home safe inside. Even when it comes to approaching women on a normal sense, I know many more ways that I can do it without seeming creepy or awkward that makes women feel more comfortable, and so women have also been able to be more open to me and not have to put up that creeper shield because they know that I have good intentions and not just that I know that. Or I found out that it might not always be the right time and place to strike up a conversation, especially walking home alone in the dark. That might have just been autism that I didn't know it before, but I talked about it with Silke, so I realized it because of her. And she explained to me that women don't always want to put up a creeper shield and a resting bitch face, but they kind of have to protect themselves, because otherwise men might be saying that they were asking for it to get harassed or approached. So, having a girl best friend and emotionally comprehensive social safety net has helped me become a better person. It has helped me navigate my connections to women in a way that it is not awkward and they can feel safe around me. Inadvertently then, it has helped address the issue of male loneliness on this level, but also reducing the harassment of women because I've been taught proper boundaries of what is okay and what is not okay, and even how to be better at approaching women if I ever felt the desire to do so. Maybe, overall on a societal level, a romantic relationship will take a hit because people start respecting themselves and not jump on the first cock that they can get their hands on. But that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, because when people finally respect themselves and have better connections to the other gender that you're interested in, you'll start going into a relationship for the right reasons, as equals, be more understanding and get the most out of them. It will make sure then that you'll be able to be treated like the kings and queens that you actually are. And so, we can start to dismantle these echo chambers of men and women only talking to each other and distrusting each other. All of that resentment from lonely men and women because of a lack of interaction will be lower, so you can start getting rid of misogyny and misandry on both ends. And I'm not saying that any of this is easy. It's quite difficult in fact, and you're going to have to navigate that on your own. I'd love to hear stories if you have them about how it works or doesn't work, but I'd be damned if I say that it wasn't very rewarding and good for my development. Thanks again, Silke. Next time, we will continue exploring healthy gender dynamics by talking about what I hate about relationships. It'll be quite interesting. I already have written the video, so I'm just going to record it after this. You'll see this as soon as I can possibly give it to you. Let me be your parasocial bestie and show what you think about this video by liking and subscribing and sharing the story to as many friends as possible that you think should hear this, so we can build a community that we are actually proud of. If you have a story about how a boy or a girl best friend worked or failed for you, please let me know. I love reading these, and I'll share a story of my own about how it failed miserably if this video reaches 10k likes. So please, hopefully I'll never have to tell the story, but you can prove me wrong if you want. If there's nothing further, I'd love to see you in the next one.